If we walk towards the northwestmost corner of the map, we find a road that leads south into the mountains. This is Nevada 157. It goes right by Vault 22, which is why we find a number of mantises around, and we also see many bighorner grazing around in the hills. As we climb to the top of the mountain, we see snow-capped peaks in the distance. At the very end is a town of some sort, protected by a big gate made of sharpened poles, going all the way around it. As we approach, a super mutant named Marcus greets us.
Welcome to Jacobstown, human. You're free to walk around. Just don't stare at the Nightkin. They don't like people looking at them. And if you're NCR, keep it to yourself. They're not popular around here.
Why aren't the NCR popular around here?
A lot of bad blood between super mutants and humans. Goes back years. Some here still got the scars and memories. Me? I don't really have a problem with the NCR. Set their sights a little too high sometimes, but they try. Legion? That's another story.
How do they set their sights a little too high?
They expand. Fast. If you got land they want, they'll take it. Eventually. Did it out west? They'll do it here. They keep rolling over people. They'll regret it. That's how revolutions start.
Do you know anything else about the NCR?
Seen them grow from a single town, Shady Sands, into the Republic. They've done good for the most part.
What do you know about the Legion?
Kaisar thinks he can change human nature. Most of the Legion is following Kaisar, not Kaisar's ideals. When he's gone, it'll crumble. Might not happen overnight. Might take a few decades, but it'll happen. Basic human nature. Greed, ambition, jealousy. We'll see to it.
Do you have any dealings with New Vegas?
Not really. Heard it's a paradise in the wasteland. Never been there myself. Doubt they'd let a mutant in. Amazes me people would come from all over the waste to throw away everything they've got in that town.
You know, I ran into Neil at Black Mountain. He told me about this town.
A lot of the mutants here found out about Jacobstown because of Neil. Our isolation works against us sometimes.
Do you have any rules here in Jacobstown that I need to know about?
Same as any civilized town. Don't start any fights or steal anything. We'll treat you fair. Not a lot to ask.
What's the history of Jacobstown?
Was a resort pre-war. I renamed it to Jacobstown after an old friend. Died a long time ago. I figured us mutants needed a place to call our own. Town's far enough away from humans so they don't bother us much. One of these days I'm hoping we can trade with the rest of the wasteland. No more fighting, just get along.
How does the town support itself?
Bighorners. Good eating. And we can trade the hides. Got a lot of wild ones around here, so it's easy to restock the herd.
I'd like to know more about you, Marcus.
Was part of a super mutant army. Ran a town, walked the wasteland with a tribal. Now I'm here.
Here, Marcus can tell us a little bit more about some of the events that happened in Fallout 1 and 2. We can ask him to tell us about his time in a super mutant army.
Long story, so here's the short version. The Master created the super mutants and Nightkin. The Master thought he could unify everyone. No more differences, no more war. Didn't end well.
You were a mayor?
Town was Broken Hills. Bunch of super mutants, humans, and ghouls all living together peacefully. Well, most of the time.
Tell me more about the tribal.
We were looking for a Gek to save the village of Arroyo. Eventually, we did. Nuked an oil rig in the process. We went separate ways after that. I went east into the Rockies looking for other mutants like myself. Don't know what happened to my friend. I've got a feeling it turned out all right in the end.
His tribal friend is none other than the Chosen One, whom we get to play in Fallout 2. Well, tell me what's wrong with the Nightkin, Marcus.
Nightkin suffers schizophrenia from the stealth boys they're always using. One of the reasons I settled Jacobstown was so they could be cured. While they're in town, the Nightkin aren't allowed to have stealth boys, so their craziness doesn't get worse. Trouble is, the Nightkin don't like being visible either. They don't take being exposed too well.
In Fallout 2, he can be a companion. Marcus is fond of founding peaceful cities and keeping them in order. He founded Broken Hills. And we learned from my video on Black Mountain that he worked with Tabitha to set up the super mutant community there at Black Mountain before Tabitha became crazy and violent and pushed Marcus and the other peaceful mutants out. True to his nature, he then came here to found Jacobstown. You can watch my video on Black Mountain to learn more about the super mutants we find in New Vegas by clicking here. Marcus is an important character in the Fallout universe, and of course he plays an essential role here at Jacobstown. So essential that if we choose to kill him, we permanently alter the ending of the game.
With Jacobstown's leadership destroyed, the remaining super mutants and Nightkin of the West scattered across the wasteland. Jacobstown withered away, its death going unnoticed by the rest of the Mojave.
Meeting Marcus here also brings up an important question about how super mutants age. We first hear about Marcus in Fallout lore in the year 2185 when he stumbles upon a Brotherhood of Steel paladin named Jacob. The two fight, but since they're so equally matched, they can't kill each other. The fight went on for days, but eventually they both gave up and became fast friends. This paladin Jacob is the man that Marcus named his town Jacobstown after. Jacob is the old friend he mentioned in our first conversation with him. Now, the events of Fallout New Vegas take place in the year 2281. That's a 96-year span of time between the founding of Jacobstown and the moment when Marcus fought with Jacob. However, lore also describes Marcus as a first-generation super mutant. The Master first started turning people into super mutants in the year 2155. As a first-generation super mutant, if Marcus was one of those first ones doused with FEV in the year 2155, that would make him 126 years old when we meet him here in Jacobstown in Fallout New Vegas. So do super mutants age? Or are they more like ghouls? Are they immortal, or is Marcus unique? And are first-generation super mutants unique from others? Is Marcus immortal, but other super mutants like Erickson not immortal? I don't have the answers just yet, but they're interesting to think about. I'll have to follow up with these thoughts in an upcoming video. But for now, Jacobstown. Jacobstown is built from the mostly intact ruins of a former pre-war resort community called Mount Charleston, which is a real place high in the mountains west of Las Vegas Valley. In the Fallout world, Jacobstown is comprised of one large lodge and 5 bungalows, most of which are boarded up and ruined, but there are 3 that we can explore. We find the inside of this first bungalow completely trashed. Lamps knocked over, dressers tipped on the side, appliances leaning on one end, and in one of these appliances, a big broken refrigerator, we find a Nuka-Cola Victory. We find lots of pre-war books and cigarettes, not much else in this bungalow. Heading on over to the next bungalow, we find a very curious scene. A human skeleton lies on the ground next to an overturned chair. The table is still covered with empty bottles of whiskey, shot glasses, ashtrays, and 2 decks of cards. Looks like a game of poker was going on here. And at the end of the table, we find a Sunset Sarsaparilla Star bottle cap. Sadly, we can't loot any of these cards, but taking a closer look at the hand, we understand exactly why this body is here. The hand that the corpse had was 5 kings, but not only 5 kings, but 5 king of diamonds. Taking a look at the other hand, we see that this guy also had a king of diamonds. This, of course, clearly betrayed the fact that this dead guy was cheating at poker, and so his opponent shot him for the crime. In the back, we find a small kitchen with lots of whiskey all over the place. We see poker chips and cards on the shelf, but sadly we can't loot any of this, which is really frustrating. After looting a couple of footlockers and an armoire, we can head outside and then unlock the door to the 3rd and final bungalow. In here, we find a couple of empty suitcases, and on the mantle of a fireplace, some 5.56mm ammunition, a service rifle, a dino toy from the Dino Light Motel, and a Repcon rocket. For some reason, we can't loot the Repcon rocket. With that, we can head outside and we see that it begins to snow. We are in the mountains after all, and there's snow covering the ground. Heading towards the lodge, we see the bighorner pen, and it looks like these bighorners are being cared for by a super mutant in a straw hat named Lily.
Jimmy! Little Jimmy! My, how you're grown up! So good of you to come visit your grandma.
Who's Jimmy?
Oh, Jimmy, don't you go being silly now. Come over here and give your grandma some sugar.
I think you may have me confused with someone else.
Of course I have, dearie. How silly of me. I didn't take my medicine yet today. How can I help you?
What do you do in Jacobstown?
I watch over the bighorners. They're sweet, gentle creatures, but sometimes they get ornery, just like my grandkids.
All right, goodbye.
Talk to you soon, dear.
Yes, that's an incredibly disturbing but hilarious encounter. Are all Nightkin crazy? We've gotten to know 2 other Nightkins so far. Tabitha, of course, who had imaginary conversations with her friend Rhonda, and then Dog/God, who suffered from split personalities in the Sierra Madre, and now this giant Nightkin who thinks that she's a grandma. What? Maybe we can get some answers if we head inside the Jacobstown Lodge.
Another human. One was enough.
Oh, this guy doesn't seem happy to see us. Standing by the door is a Nightkin named Keen.
Bother someone else. I don't want anything to do with you.
Do you have a problem with humans?
Humans are always staring at things. We Nightkin don't like being stared at. Is uncomfortable.
Okay, well, some humans don't like being stared at. How does that make you different from humans?
It is different. Right now, I'm trying very hard to remain civil, and you're not making it easy with your incessant questions.
We have the option to stare silently at him.
Humans.
Who's the other human you mentioned?
Dr. Henry. He's one of you. Go speak with him instead of me.
What do you do here, Keen?
I represent the Nightkin. Marcus may lead this town, but the Nightkin listen to what I have to say. Doesn't mean I don't respect Marcus for what he's trying to do. However, he doesn't truly understand the difficulties of being a Nightkin.
Why are the Nightkin here in Jacobstown?
The stealth boys we use have cumulative adverse effects on our minds. Jacobstown was supposed to be a sanctuary, a place to find a cure. Instead, we wait and wait. I'm sick of waiting.
So their use of stealth boys is making them crazy. Well, that does explain a few things. Goodbye, Keen.
Finally.
Well, it sounds like these big blue super mutants called Nightkin prefer to be in a state of stealth, but they stop using their stealth boys because prolonged exposure to stealth boys turns them crazy. I can see how they've got quite a problem on their hands. Sitting on the reception desk is a limited edition snow globe. You have found a limited edition Mojave Landmark snow globe. This one is the Mount Charleston snow globe. We can then head back to the Lucky 38 and add this to our snow globe collection. On this bottom floor behind the reception desk, we find 2 hallways that lead to some rooms, and then we can head up the stairs to explore the top level of this lodge, where we find even more rooms. Unlike many ruined places in Fallout New Vegas, we don't find a lot of corpses, which I think makes a lot of sense. These super mutants have moved in. They likely got rid of all of the corpses that they could find. Instead, this place looks lived in. Lots of trash and bottles and food lying about, lockers, containers, and personal effects. But it's a little confusing because some items and containers are set to owned, which means if we take anything we'll be stealing and we'll lose karma, and many others are set to unowned, which means we can take them freely without stealing. The difference between these items seems arbitrary to me. So we can explore each and every one of these rooms even if we don't feel like stealing, just in case we'll find something that is set to unowned. One interesting item of note, in one of these rooms we find the only pinball machine in the entire game. We can vaguely make out some text on it. White Star Galaxy? White Star Galaxy? Is that what that says? Can't play it, but it's an interesting one-of-a-kind prop. We find a reloading bench up here, and Marcus's private bedroom with a locked door that we can pick, but there's nothing really in it. Aside from ammunition and minor loot, we don't walk away with anything impressive. When done exploring the upstairs, we have one final place to explore. From the lobby, we can go through a double door to the east to find a clinic or a lab of some sort. We see beds over in one corner and a lab in the other. We find 2 people walking around, a man and a female ghoul, and there's a dead Nightstalker on an examination table in here. We can head on over to talk to the ghoul. Her name is Calamity.
I I'd heard there were new people in town, but I thought it was more super mutants. Nice to meet ya. I'm Calamity.
You have an interesting name, Calamity.
Thank you. Change names and jobs every decade or so just to keep things interesting. I picked Calamity this time because it sounded nice. Never really done much science stuff till now. I'm pretty good at it. Or so Dr. Henry tells me.
What do you do here?
Most of the time, I'm Dr. Henry's research assistant. We're looking into ways to cure the, I'm also handy with tools. And once in a while I venture down into the valley to trade the bighorner hides and meat for supplies.
That was an odd response. I think she may not understand what she and Dr. Henry are really doing, possibly because before she became Calamity, she had never really done any science stuff. Do anyone other than the super mutants come up this way?
Prospectors looking for salvage, usually. They always run when they see the mutants. The great Khans come this way once in a while, but they keep their distance. I think they're mostly keeping an eye on us.
She functions as Jacobstown's primary vendor and repair person. She has a repair skill of 60, which is pretty decent. She has over 4,000 caps on her inventory, which is great, but otherwise her inventory is less than impressive. She really only has 8 items for sale and a small bit of junk. Further exploring the lab, we see what looks like brains in jars on this table and lots of blood splatter in nearby trays. Once the doctor stands up from the terminal, we can have a chat.
I assume this is about something important? You're interrupting my research.
I'm surprised to find another human here.
I prefer the solitude, and having a bunch of super mutants around tends to keep things safe and quiet.
You're a scientist?
Yes, specializing in neuroscience, both human and canine. Of course, this lab is nothing compared to what I had when I was with the Enclave.
You were with the Enclave?
Yes, but the leadership and I didn't see eye to eye, so I left. It was the right decision, since the Enclave's oil rig was destroyed not long after.
Canine neuroscience?
Cyberdogs and the like. It's not a field I work in much anymore.
Dr. Henry is an important man to visit when we do some side quests with the Kings in Freeside to get the companion, Rex. His comment here about canine neuroscience alludes to this, but we'll explore that further when we do our series on the Kings. Instead, we can ask him what he's working on right now.
The Nightkin have varying degrees of mental instability due to their addiction to stealth boy use. I've been trying to come up with a cure. I'm currently investigating the local Nightstalker population, since they seem to have developed a natural stealth field. I've also gotten my hands on a working Stealth Boy Mark II prototype, but that experiment is riskier. I'd rather not pursue that research just yet.
Why is the Stealth Boy Mark II riskier?
The stealth field has been modulated to use less power and thus last longer, but for some reason it has pronounced negative effects on the user. However, these pronounced effects will allow me to pinpoint exactly what parts of the brain they're affecting. Unfortunately, I'll need to run the test on a live subject, and Marcus has encouraged me to investigate the Nightstalker mutation first.
Does using a Stealth Boy hurt humans the way it does Nightkin?
It's possible, but I've yet to see any hard evidence or hear of any cases where humans were negatively affected. Its negative effects are more pronounced on Nightkin.
Why are you helping the Nightkin?
Because Marcus asked me to, and because it's a reason for me to get up in the morning. I'd like to get one more grand accomplishment done.
Huh, well that's a noble goal, Dr. Henry. I'd like to help. What do you need me to do?
I'm not convinced that the Nightstalker mutation is a natural one, and I need someone to investigate their lair for proof. Some of the super mutants have looked around as well, but they've come back empty-handed. Perhaps a pair of fresh eyes will have better luck. Lily might be interested in coming with you. She's lost a few of her bighorners to Nightstalker attacks, and would enjoy a little revenge.
He adds a map marker to their lair on our Pip-Boy. And we begin the quest, Guess Who I Saw Today? What makes you think that the Nightstalker mutation isn't natural?
I've compared the brain chemistry of a Nightkin to one of the local Nightstalkers we killed. They both exhibit similar neurochemical changes. Now, I'm not claiming that Nightstalkers are running around wearing stealth boys, mind you. I just don't think it's all a coincidence.
Now, Dr. Henry is one of the key people we can visit whose conversations spark a recording playback with Ed E. when completing his personal quest. This is a fascinating side story, but we need to save this until we start the Lonesome Road DLC. So for now, let's learn a little bit more about the Nightkin plight here at Jacobstown. Taking a look at the terminal that Dr. Henry was typing on earlier, we find 3 terminal entries. The first, Nightkin test data. Astonishingly enough, the local Nightstalkers have developed a mutation not unlike the stealth field generated by stealth boys. Even more importantly, the brains I've dissected have shown heightened levels of endorphins and other neurochemicals similar to what I've seen in Nightkin brains. If this mutation is natural, perhaps a cure could be synthesized from the Nightstalkers. As far as I can tell, the Nightstalkers don't suffer from schizophrenia like the affected Nightkin. In the next one, the Mark II prototype. The Stealth Boy Mark II prototype is functional. Sort of. The Enclave data wasn't complete, so I had to make a few guesses here and there. Unfortunately, the data also suggests that while the stealth field has a greater duration, the negative effects on the user are exponentially greater. I can use this to my advantage. The brainwave changes will be more pronounced, and it'll be much easier to figure out what exactly is needed to cure the Nightkin's schizophrenia. Lily has graciously volunteered to be my test subject, despite the risk. Lily volunteered, but she seems a little crazy. Is she even capable of making an informed decision? The final one, on Keen. Keen seems to have caught on about the Stealth Boy Mark II prototype. I told him that it was in no way functional, but I'm not entirely sure he believed me. I'll have to keep an eye on him. Well, when we met Keen at the door, he did seem a bit restless. He seems eager to go. So the Enclave had been working on a Stealth Boy Mark II. Dr. Henry formerly worked with the Enclave before the Chosen One destroyed the Enclave oil rig. I suppose he managed to retrieve some Enclave technology, like the Stealth Boy Mark II, before the tanker sank. In addition to seeing whether or not it can cure the Nightkin's schizophrenia, I'm interested to see what a Stealth Boy Mark II can do on a human. This seems like a fascinating avenue of research to me. Well, Dr. Henry said that Lily may be interested in joining us, so we can head on over to the Bighorner Pen to talk with Lily.
My, but that Lucky 38 is a large building. And so fancy.
I'm looking into the Nightstalker mutation. Want to come with me?
Ooh, those Nightstalkers, always killing my bighorners. It'll be nice to give them a piece of my mind.
With that, Lily joins our party as a companion, and we get the Stealth Girl perk. While Lily is a companion, the duration of Stealth Boys is increased by 100%, and all sneak attack critical hits do an additional 10% damage. As counterintuitively as it may seem, this giant lumbering Nightkin is a great companion for a stealth assassination character. As we head out the road to leave Jacobstown, Marcus takes us aside.
Got a problem. Could use your help. Been having trouble with NCR mercs harassing the town, and they just showed up again.
NCR mercs? How have they been harassing the town?
Killing our bighorners, shooting at the lodge, that sort of thing. It's getting hard to keep people from retaliating.
You're sure these mercenaries work for the NCR? It seems out of character for something they would do.
Guess I can't say for sure if they're NCR. Whoever they are, they want us dead or gone.
Why can't you just take them out?
Not looking to fight. That'll give NCR an excuse to come up here and wipe us out.
What do you want me to do about it?
You're human. They might be willing to listen to what you have to say. Maybe. I'm not asking you to kill them. Just talk them into leaving. Hell, pay them off if you have to.
All right, I'll see what I can do.
Thanks.
With that, we begin the quest Unfriendly Persuasion, and heading down the road, we do indeed see a group of mercenaries blocking the path. Heading on up to Norton, the mercenary blocking the road, we can have a chat with him.
It's much cooler up here. I love it. Our business is with the muties, not you.
What do you want with Jacobstown?
Just doing what I'm paid to do. Harass the muties until they leave or attack us. If they leave, we'll let them go. If they attack, we wipe them out. Either way, the job's not done until they're cleared out of the town.
Who are you doing this for?
Won't name names, but some important folks in the NCR are sick of muties attacking their Brahmin herds. They want them gone from NCR territory. Maybe this group had something to do with attacking Brahmin, maybe not. Doesn't matter. We're getting paid to make them go away.
Oh, Oh no, I know what's going on here. They think that the Jacobstown super mutants are killing their Brahmin herds, but we already know from doing a quest in Novak that this is not the case. Someone else is responsible, though we can see why the NCR would make this mistake. But we already learned from Marcus that these super mutants have their own herds of bighorners. They stay to the mountains. They don't go down to where the Brahmin herds are. These mercenaries are making a mistake. Well, we have a handful of ways we can deal with this. Since they're mercenaries, we can treat them like mercenaries. We can say, will caps make you go away?
We're still owed half, 2,500 caps. Pay up and we'll be on our way. If you're short, maybe you can get the money from the muties.
With that, we can head on back to Jacobstown to see if we can get the caps from Marcus.
Something on your mind?
And we have two options here. We can say, I need 2,500 caps to pay the mercenaries.
That puts a dent in the town treasury. If that's what it takes to be rid of them.
In which case he gives it to us, or we can say, I need 3,000 caps to pay off the mercenaries.
Damn it. That'll wipe out the town treasury. If that's what it takes.
In which case he gives it to us, but we lose karma, because we're taking advantage of the situation to enrich ourselves. But whichever choice we make, we don't have to give this money to the mercenaries. We can always just kill them. If we do, we gain NCR infamy, and Marcus is not pleased.
Not the outcome I was hoping for with the mercs. At least it buys us time to build up our defenses. Had hoped to start reaching out to NCR, start talking trade and borders. It'll be more difficult now.
But he doesn't mention the money. He never asks for it back, so that's one way to walk away with 3,000 caps. Alternatively, once we get the money from Marcus, we can hand it over to Norton. Here's your money, 2,500 caps.
A deal's a deal. We'll be on our way.
With that, they simply turn around and walk away. But we have two more options. We can pass a difficult 65 speech check to say, go away or you'll have to deal with me, and you'll wish you were fighting super mutants instead.
I've always known when to fight and when to back down, and it seems to me I ought to back down this time. My men and I are leaving. You won't see us around here again.
With that, they also turn around and walk away. Our final option is to use our reputation with the NCR to say, I'm a hero in the NCR, and I think you need to leave. Now.
Whoa. Thought you looked familiar. I'm just doing a job, nothing more. Politics aren't my thing, so if you say go, we'll go. No hard feelings.
And he also turns around and walks away peacefully, as do all of his mercenaries. If we choose to get rid of him peacefully, we can turn around and head back to Marcus to say you won't have any more trouble with those mercenaries.
Good. Glad you didn't kill them. Letting them walk away proves we're not bloodthirsty mutants. If NCR or anybody else is looking for an excuse to attack Jacobstown, they're not going to get it from us.
By the way, I couldn't help having a conversation with the intimidating Nightkin inside the lodge there. What's the story with Keen?
Smart, charismatic, and hell of a mean streak. Doesn't care for humans, prefers fighting them to talking. He's got a lot of pull with Nightkin, though. He talks, they listen. Was hoping he could draw the Nightkin to Jacobstown. Keen is saner than most, but I know he's thinking of going his own way again. He's aggressive, impatient, can't stand sitting around.
Why does Keen want to leave?
Because of a promise, one I haven't been able to keep. The Nightkin all suffer from schizophrenia. It's the stealth boys they use, or used to use. Nightkin have a hard time being seen like normal folks. Can't stand it. A few already left to try and find more stealth boys. Miserable situation. They either stay here and suffer, or dig up stealth boys and lose their minds. Not much of a choice.
What happens if Keen leaves?
That happens, there's a good chance other Nightkin will follow. It'll make it hard to get a cure to them. Worse, if Keen and the Nightkin tear up the Mojave hunting for stealth boys, people are gonna get killed. Most humans can't tell the difference between mutants. Might come here looking for payback.
Well, you're a mutant too. Wouldn't the Nightkin listen to you?
That's like saying Caesar and Kimball would listen to each other. Nightkin don't have a lot of trust for others, mutants included.
Well, we need to head on over to that cave, but it's getting a little dark. Waiting until the morning when it's sunny, we see that our compass marker sends us behind Jacobstown into the mountains. We find a snow-covered path that leads up into the mountains. We can follow it towards the lair. You know, thinking about the Nightkin situation, it may be tempting to simply dismiss it. But I think there are many people out there who can empathize with the plight of the Nightkin. There are some people who have a great deal of anxiety, for example, in large open spaces, or in crowded spaces, surrounded by other people. They get nervous, fidgety, they just want to leave, they almost want to run out of the room screaming. It bothers them that much, and I believe that that may be how these Nightkin are feeling by being seen. Maybe they feel like they're in a big crowded theater all the time. Maybe they feel like humans and other super mutants are staring at them, judging them. This in the lore of the game is clearly a mental issue brought on by prolonged exposure to the stealth boys, so it's not natural. But the effects on these poor Nightkin are very real. We see the evils that crazy Nightkin have done to the Mojave. Tabitha in the state of Utilbitha is a prime example. The Brotherhood of Steel had a peaceful relationship when Marcus was in charge of Black Mountain, but with Tabitha there, she began to pester the Brotherhood, and she made them an enemy. Therefore, helping Dr. Henry find a cure to this problem is going to be better for everyone in the Mojave Wasteland. At length, we come to the top of the mountain where we see a cave closed off with a big gate. This is the entrance to Charleston Cave, and just outside, marked with some heart graffiti, we find a hollowed-out rock filled with randomized loot. The inside of the cave is pitch black. Crouching down and moving forward, we see the shimmering shapes of stealthed Nightstalkers in the adjoining room. In this room, we find a locked ammunition crate and a couple of mattresses, both covered in blood, one which still has a body on it. We see many ways out of this room, but let's take the east path first. And almost immediately, we see another path going down to the left, and we arrive at a ledge directly in front of us. This overhangs a large room where we see the shimmering shapes of even more Nightstalkers. Trying to take them out here was a bit of a mistake. Instead, they go through a tunnel and rush up to attack. With these Nightstalkers dead, we can go down the path which leads to this large room. Here we can take out the final shimmering form. There's nothing in this room, but we do find an exit against the northwestern wall, where we find another Nightstalker. And this leads us down a path into one large room where we see one more shimmering form. With the dead, we can explore, and we see 3 dead bodies here. One is the dead body of a Nightkin, and on his corpse is a chewed stealth boy. This is what we needed to collect for the quest, so now we just need to wind our way out. On the ground near to this body is the unique sledgehammer, Oh Baby. This is one of the most powerful melee weapons in the game. Compared to normal super sledges, it has 10 more damage, and it's faster, doing 1.74 attacks per second compared to 1.5. Its critical damage is 15 points greater, and it has fewer action point cost, which brings the total DPS of this thing up to 138.9 compared to 105 of a typical super sledge. It's a great weapon to use in VATS. It has a special melee attack called the Mauler, which does 50% greater damage in VATS, though it does cost 8 more action points to pull off this move, but it knocks down enemies. Since I don't do a lot of melee on this character, I decided to give the weapon to Lily. She does have this unique blade made from a vertebrate wing, which is pretty cool, but so is this weapon. Now that we have the chewed stealth boy, we need to find a way out. The way out is to head down a path into a room filled with shallow water. The water is highly irradiated. We gain 1 rad per second while standing in it, and it glows green. We see 2 pathways leading out of here. Heading up the southeastern ramp, we end At a door? What's a bunker door doing in this cave? And it's locked with a hard lock. After picking the lock, we appear in what looks like a supply shed. Lots of great stuff here. A bunch of purified water, stim packs, Rad-X, Radaway, a bunch of magazines, pre-war money, and a post-war audio log. Taking a listen to it in our Pip-Boy.
So the Reds finally hit us, just like I always said they would. Vegas is still there as far as I know, but that probably won't last long. Didn't get accepted into one of the vaults, so I did the next best thing and had this place built. Got massive debts, but who cares now? That's every man for himself now. Had to take care of the Paulson boy since he knew about this place. These supplies are for me and nobody else. There's a woman and her daughter up in one of the rooms of the lodge. Might go pay him a visit tomorrow. The man's got needs.
This is one of the most horrifying audio messages I've heard in any of these games. I'm most disturbed by the nonchalance of the way he says, "A man's got needs" at the end there. Oh my god. And it sounds like he murdered a young boy who happened to know about the existence of his private bunker. What a monster. Did he ever follow up on his desires? We already explored the lodge and the bungalows. The only skeleton we found in the bungalows was the man who was shot by his gambling partner. And if there were any bodies in the lodge, they had been removed long ago. Ultimately, we don't know where the Paulson boy is buried, if he was ever buried at all, and we don't know if the woman and her daughter survived an attack by this man. As horrified as I am that this holotape even exists, I have to admit that this kind of thinking would probably be pretty common in a post-apocalypse. There likely would be many people who would use the post-apocalypse as an excuse to throw morality out the window, as an excuse to justify any behavior they deem right. As this man said, it's about his survival. The Paulson boy put his survival at risk, so the Paulson boy had to go. And a man has needs, therefore those two women were expendable as long as he needed them to be. This type of thinking is not unique to a post-apocalypse. The Athenians famously besieged the island of Melos during the Peloponnesian War, where they threatened the Dorians during the Melian dialogue by saying, "Those who have power will do what they can. Those without power do what they must." Even though they succeeded in their siege of Melos and annihilated the Dorians, that kind of thinking, that mentality didn't end well for the Athenians. And even though we don't know the fate of this man, we don't see his body, we don't find his skeleton, we see that he left all of his food here, uneaten. It's likely then that while attempting to do what he can because he had the power, he may have met an untimely end. Heading back to Jacobstown, we can hand the broken stealth boy on over to Dr. Henry.
Is there something else I can do for you?
How goes your research for the Nightkin cure?
Promising, but I won't be able to synthesize the drug anytime soon. I really should get back to my work.
I found this chewed-up stealth boy in the Nightstalker lair.
There's still power, but the casing is cracked. I'm astonished that exposure to the stealth radiation could induce mutations so rapidly. More importantly, this explains why my research into this group of Nightstalkers hasn't come up with a cure for the Nightkin. There's only one avenue left for me. I need to run the Mark II test on Lily. It's the only way.
Why Lily, and not some other Nightkin?
Lily is eccentric, certainly, but I've never felt she was dangerous. More importantly, she asked if she could help me in some way. I've told her about the risks, and she still insists on helping me.
What are the risks of the experiment?
Possibly immediate and permanent mental damage. There's a reason the Stealth Boy Mark IIs never got beyond the prototype stage. Lily already has a pre-existing condition, and the experiment will likely make things worse for her.
Well, I'll talk with Lily then.
I'll be waiting.
Heading on over to Lily, we can ask her if she's cool with this. We can say, "Did you still want to help Dr. Henry run his experiment?"
Of course, dearie. I know it's dangerous, but it'll all turn out for the best. You'll see. I'll go to him now. It would be rude to keep him waiting.
With that, she leaves our company and rushes on over to Dr. Henry. To begin the experiment, we talk with the doctor.
The equipment is hooked up and ready. We can start the test as soon as you give me the go-ahead.
Go ahead and start the tests.
Very well. Please stand back. I don't want any erroneous readings. You're welcome to stay and observe if you want, though.
Standing back as instructed, Dr. Henry stands up and walks over to Lily.
All right, power on the Stealth Boy, Lily.
turning it on. Feels strange. Strange but good.
Interesting. Try thinking aggressive thoughts now. Think about smashing a rad scorpion.
Lily smash! Yeah!
How are those readings looking, Calamity?
Stealth field is stable, and the readings are clean. Gamma wave activity is 0. Odd, but everything looks right.
All right, we're done here. Go ahead and power the stealth boy down, Lily.
Oh, I liked having it on.
I'll get back to you on that in a moment, once I've analyzed the results. Uh-oh.
Just then, Keen and some of his Nightkin buddies burst through the door.
Keen has never liked me. If anyone can talk him into backing down, it'll have to be you.
My request is perfectly reasonable. Give us the stealth boy specs, and there will be no need for us to splatter the room with your insides.
Whoa, hey, let's talk about this, Keen. What are you planning to do once you have the specs?
There are caches of stealth boys out there. With the Mark II in hand, it shouldn't be difficult to upgrade every one of them.
The Mark IIs are even more dangerous than standard stealth boys.
Our lives, our decision to make. We're tired of sitting around in Jacobstown waiting for a cure.
We now have 3 choices, each of which has an effect on the end of the game. We can submit to his request and say, Dr. Henry, do as he asks.
Good, good. Smart move, human.
With that, they get what they want and they walk out the door. Talking with Dr. Henry.
I think those Nightkin are going to cause a lot of trouble. But I guess giving them the specs was better than killing them.
And checking in with Marcus.
It was hard enough to convince Keen to come up here in the first place. And you gave him an excuse to leave. Better than killing him, I guess. Always a chance I could get him to come back. Not counting on it. Hope the town doesn't take the blame for whatever trouble he gets into.
Choosing this option has the following result at the end of the game.
Though a cure for the Nightkin schizophrenia was eventually found, it became a case of too little, too late for Jacobstown. Most Nightkin at Jacobstown followed their leader, Keen, out into the wasteland, terrorizing the Mojave for years to come. Jacobstown, constantly on guard for anti-mutant reprisals, never truly prospered.
Or we can refuse to hand over the specs and say, you're not getting the Mark II specs.
I knew humans could never be reasonable. I knew it. Stupid, stupid humans. I'll kill you.
In which case Keen and his Nightkin attack, forcing us to defend ourselves.
The Nightkin aren't going to stick around that long with Keen dead. Not without a good reason, anyway.
During the fight, Dr. Henry and Calamity ran off. We find them sheltering in the bathroom.
Marcus isn't going to be happy about the deaths, but I guess they were unavoidable. At least I got a lot of useful data from the experiment.
And checking in with Marcus.
So, Keen's dead. Knew it might come to that someday. Makes things difficult for the town. Without Keen, it'll be hard to convince other Nightkin in the wasteland to come here, and harder to get the ones here to stay.
If we choose this option, we get the following ending.
Though a cure for the Nightkin schizophrenia was eventually found, it became a case of too little, too late for Jacobstown. Disgruntled by the death of their leader, Keen, most of the Nightkin scattered into the wasteland, their insanity worsening with each day. Jacobstown, constantly on guard for anti-mutant reprisals, never truly prospered.
The third option here is to pass a difficult speech check of 80 to say, what you do in the wasteland affects all of the mutants here, but you didn't think about that, did you?
No, I didn't. Not until now, anyway. Very well, human. You've made your point, and I withdraw my request.
In which case, Keen and his Nightkin back down. Heading outside to talk with Marcus.
I like how you handled Keen. Without the Nightkin around, Jacobstown would be much weaker than it is.
And checking in with Henry.
Nice work with the Nightkin. I've never seen anyone able to talk their kind out of anything once they had their mind set to it. I got a lot of useful data from the experiment, and am a lot closer to a cure than before. It's occurred to me that this brief test might not yield a cure anytime soon. However, if Lily were to continue to wear the prototype...
Oh, really? Well, what do you want to do?
I'm close to the cure. I can feel it. Lily's continued help will give me the last bit of data that I need.
What will happen to Lily?
Permanent damage to her mind is a certainty. Even the cure won't help her.
This is a difficult decision. Thankfully, we can ask around to see what other people think. Heading outside, we can talk with Marcus and say, Dr. Henry wants Lily to continue wearing the prototype. What do you think?
Up to Lily. Not my call. Might lead to a faster cure, might not. Don't want any harm coming to her.
Checking in with Lily, we can ask her what she thinks. Dr. Henry wants to know if you'll continue to wear the Mark II prototype.
Of course I will, dearie, if it's helpful. Don't you worry what will happen to little old me. I'm tougher than I look.
You know, there's a risk that the mental damage will be permanent.
Of course, dearie.
You can always say no.
I know that, dearie.
All right, if you're sure.
Certainly.
With that, we can go back to Dr. Henry and make our final choice. We have 3 options. The first is to refuse. We can say, the risk to Lily is too great. Please stop the test.
All right. I'll dismantle the prototype to avoid any further incidents with the Nightkin.
If we choose this option, we get the following ending.
With no cure for the Nightkin schizophrenia in sight, the disgruntled Nightkin left Jacobstown. Without a treatment, their insanity grew. The crazed Nightkin terrorized the wasteland, and Jacobstown suffered repeated reprisals from mutant-hating humans. In the end, the surviving mutants abandoned Jacobstown entirely, its existence quickly forgotten by the rest of the wasteland.
The second choice is to go along with it, and to say, I think Lily should continue to wear the Mark II prototype.
Very well. It will be worth it, I'm sure.
And if we choose this option, we get the following ending.
It took more time than anticipated for a cure for the Nightkin schizophrenia to be found, but in the end, it was beneficial to Jacobstown. The presence of the Nightkin leader, Keen, persuaded Nightkin from across the wasteland to make the journey to the town. Jacobstown prospered, becoming known as a fair, if somewhat intimidating, place for a trader to do business.
The final option requires passing an extremely difficult science check of 90 to point out an alternative that Dr. Henry had not thought of. We can say, use neuropeptide stimulators on a Nightstalker's brain. Results then should be similar to a live Nightkin brain.
That's brilliant. Simple yet elegant. I can't believe I didn't think of that.
Well, I have no idea what we just convinced this guy to do, but it means that he no longer has to experiment on Lily. Afterwards, we can talk with Keen to see how he feels about this. Keen, what are you and the Nightkin still doing here in Jacobstown?
The stealth boys we use have cumulative adverse effects on our minds, but thanks to you, it seems a cure is on the way at last.
And choosing this option, we get the following ending.
Thanks to the courier and Lily, a cure for the Nightkin schizophrenia was found shortly after Dr. Henry's experiment concluded. Nightkin and other super mutants in the wasteland flocked to Jacobstown, and the town became known as a haven where a mutant could find peace.
With that, we complete the quest Guess Who I Saw Today, and we can walk off into the snowy hills with our brand new companion, Lily. Lily is a really fun new companion, and she has a heartbreaking story. Never fear, we will do a video dedicated to Lily in the following days. But what are your thoughts on Jacobstown, Marcus, and this entire quest? Let's assume for the moment that our science skill is not great enough to pass that final check. Which would have been the most moral option? Continuing to experiment on Lily despite the fact that we know that she's a little bit intellectually challenged? Or refusing to experiment on Lily for those reasons, but putting the entire future of Nightkins at risk? Are we arrogant to say that we can make a decision about Lily and her life better than she can on the presumption that her judgment is clouded due to her schizophrenia? Or would we be reckless to hand her over to Dr. Henry and say, yeah, go ahead and experiment on her. She even said she was okay with it, despite the risks. I, for one, am really glad we have a way out of this. Passing the science check at the very end completely removes the conflict. He experiments on a Nightstalker brain that can simulate a live Nightkin brain, which takes away the entire gray area to this moral decision. But what are your thoughts? Which would you choose if you couldn't pass the science check? Let me know in the comments section below. I've got a brand new t-shirt in the shop, folks. Thanks, killer. That's right, this is a t-shirt about everyone's favorite sociopath from Fallout 4, Pikmin. On the front, we have a copy of his handwritten message to the sole survivor, and on the back, we have a portrait of the man painting one of his masterpieces. It comes in shirts, hoodies, sweatshirts, and in a variety of colors, and I even have it available as a canvas print. You can find a link in the description below, or you can click here. Thanks for watching, folks. I publish a brand new video 6 days a week on a wide range of Fallout topics spanning all of the games. So if you want to make sure that you don't miss my next video, be sure to subscribe and to click that bell notification button. And if you like what I do and you want to support me in a more personal way, consider becoming one of my patrons on Patreon. But more than anything, I'm just so glad you're here watching this video with me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you bright and early tomorrow morning with a brand new video.